This is Stirring the Pot with the one and only Don Kincaid, the man who will take you on a trip that you have never been on before, a trip which will give you memories, not just slight memories, but lasting memories. Stirring the Pot with Don Kincaid. Stir it, kiddo.
All right. This is Stirring the Pot with Don Kincaid, and the continuation, this is amazing. The continuation, my very special guest, Mr. Tom Burke. Mr. Tom Burke, thank you so much.
Mr. Kincaid from the Kincaid Files.
I had to wear my cute little shirt.
I see that.
The Rabbit Sisters made this.
You're kidding me.
I am dead. Now, I have one. Jacob has one. My dad has one. And then Dawn and Laura Radish have one. So we have these cool Kincaid File shirts. I thought they were very thoughtful.
I think that's an excellent idea. There's nothing like self-publicity. Let me tell you. If it wasn't for self-publicity, half the wrestlers wouldn't be around today.
Well, they do call that self-branding, correct?
The normal term now is branding.
Branding?
Old school, so it's publicity to me. Okay. But anyways, Don, welcome back. This is segment number 2.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be doing other segments down the road.
I feel this could turn into a continuation of an infinity of segments. There's so much to talk about.
I'm going to be 75 in 2 years, so maybe we'll just move on to the 75th. Okay. Anyways, welcome. I'd like to discuss a few things.
Please do.
If I may.
I know you got stuff on your mind.
I do have some stuff on my mind.
Yeah.
I want to congratulate Big Time Wrestling and Blitzkrieg for having a sold-out show in Enfield last Saturday. Sad to say, I was not able to attend due to the fact I was in Long Island to attend the BTW show, which was moved to Enfield. But that's all right.
Wow.
But I did go to a wrestling show in Astoria, Queens, New York.
Okay.
My very good friend John Pantozzi was the ring announcer, and as John and I were culling through one of 52 boxes of wrestling memorabilia which he inherited from the late Fred Hornby, he gets a phone call from the promoter asking him if he could ring announce because his ring announcer bailed out. So John did the ring announcing, and I went to the show. There were probably, I think, 10 matches. Matt Stryker was on, who always has a interesting match in interacting with the fans, which is very important. However, I would like to bring up a point. I'm not going to mention the gentleman's name because I completely forgot, and I hope I will forget. He was an individual, a local guy, who was on the show, did a big promo before his match. Ended up losing. He was a local boy. He had an entourage of people there. Ends up getting pinned and taking a lot of grief and a lot of bumps, etc. And as he's walking out of the ring, he's rubbing his neck and his knee and all this. About 5 minutes later, he walks out, and he sits with the crowd nonchalantly like nothing ever happened. And this brought back memories of an incident at a WWF TV taping in Philadelphia. I was there, and I was talking to the Grand Wizard. And as Ian and I were talking...
I hate to interrupt. Did you say WWWF?
Yes.
Okay.
Try WF.
Okay.
Yeah, back in the day. Mm-hmm. This is when Morales would have been champion.
Correct.
Anyways, I was talking to the Grand Wizard, and Piggy Larson, a enhancement talent, had just been on the TV being annihilated by one of the guys. I don't know who the heel was. That slips my memory. But he walks out of the dressing room area to go get a Coke. Comes back, and of course he's being hauled off from his match by security. And now he nonchalantly walks out like nothing ever happened. And the Grand Wizard says to the police officer, "Officer, arrest this man for impersonating a professional wrestler." Well, I thought about that, and what I saw this past Saturday resurrected that. I mean, if you're going to be in wrestling, I realize kayfabe is dead. However, use a little common sense. You get annihilated in the ring. You don't walk out like it's the 4th of July and nothing's wrong. So, wise up, guys. Okay, that's my take for the event I attended this past Saturday. Which was, other than that, the matches were good. They had a sellout crowd of about 250, 300, and it was well. And once again, I scanned the audience. It was basically a young adult audience, and but it was fun. It was a good show.
So your take from that was a hot take right there.
Oh yeah.
But I understand where you're coming from. So the moral of what you're trying to tell us is, if you're a wrestler, you got all sorts of beat up, and you were giving heat to the fans were giving heat to you, and then you come out and you kind of sit and be part, or try to be part of the show as a regular fan, I guess it seems like.
That's right, exactly. Yeah.
Kayfabe, I don't believe is actually totally dead, to be honest with you, sir.
I think the last nail in the coffin was Saturday night.
Well, not everybody treats kayfabe with how they should. What's your point?
Kayfabe should be treated with great respect.
And I see on Facebook, because I only do Facebook, I see on Facebook a lot of guys stress that and get quite irate over that subject alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you don't take away just from that visual of the bad guy is now hanging out with the fans and shaking people's hands and stuff like that, or the bad guy just got his neck broken and he's still hanging out and like eating a hot dog and hanging out.
Right.
But the respect that the disrespect, I guess what it comes down to from what I see from the men and women when they post their stuff is, we are in the back in our locker room. You should be in the back with us in our locker room. When it's intermission time, then you come out, you sell your merch, you be your character, and then you go back out to the locker room. Basically is what they drive at.
Exactly. And I understand wrestling is a lot different today and everything, but if you're going to have a character and you're trying to get yourself over with the fans, you got a baby face or a heel, you got to implement it totally and not half-ass. And that's what this gentleman did, was totally half-ass. Maybe it was not totally half-ass. Not totally half-ass. It was a total ass. But whatever. Anyways, that's my take on the show this past Saturday. I would like to discuss something we discussed earlier.
Please,
Don.
Please.
And you don't mind if I call you Don?
No, by all means.
Okay.
No, by all means.
Mr. Kincaid, I like the formality. Anyways, getting back to the situation locally here. We discussed a couple people locally on the scene here, and I would like to bring up a couple things. Honest Abe.
Oh man.
Honest Abe. Abe, you are the godfather of wrestling managers. Let me explain something to you. Well, I just saw something where you are now calling yourself the Daddy Warbucks of wrestling, managing Chris the Sarge Cannon.
Oh man.
Who Chris Cannon, I think, is a phenomenal talent. However, Daddy Warbucks, you're more like Sad Sack. Beetle Bailey. I mean, come on, Abe. Get with it, kiddo. I saw your picture on the net last night, or maybe it was probably early this morning, and I chugged on my orange juice. You in fatigues. Come on, Abe.
No.
You know, I mean, you should be hauling a bowler, a black shirt, a black tie, because you are the godfather of wrestling managers.
But wasn't that a shocker, though? Seeing him in fatigues, didn't that throw your whole game off?
It was a shocker that he has teamed up with one of the outstanding newcomers in the game.
Who's very angry.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? Chris may have, what is it, PSDS? He may go off on the godfather of wrestling, Honest Abe, and now Daddy Warbucks. Oh, God almighty. You know, I'm just waiting for the little orphan Annie to show up. You know, maybe that'll be winning a radish system. Who knows?
I am so glad you brought that up, because I've just talked to a couple people about that. And seeing Abe, first off, in fatigues, made me crack up at this, because we've seen what Abe dresses like, and like to just see him do it was a shocker, and it made me crack up all at the same time. But we were talking about managers, were we not?
Absolutely.
And he's stepping up, and he's becoming that, trying to implement that managerial portion character,
which is good. And I understand you're going to be talking to one of the premier managers of New England in another hour or so.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Atticus Monroe.
Yes.
And I kindly give my fondest personal regards to
will.
Mr. Monroe. Anyways, another talent that I've seen wrestle at Battlefront for the first time last month was Ray Jazz. I think he's excellent. I was really impressed with him, and I look forward to seeing him in future shows. He definitely has a good look. His ring ability is very good, and I can see a lot of things coming forth for him in the future. Maybe even outside the New England area. I think he's from New Jersey and New York someplace, but I can see him expanding even on a national front and everything. Which also brings me to the point is that, you know, we have an explosion of wrestling promotions nationally now. We got, of course, WWE, you have AEW, and you have the NWA, which is resurrecting and everything. So they're going to be needing talent. So maybe a lot of these indie guys that are around will end up being in part of these new groups. Let's hope so. Also, at the same point, I'd like to congratulate Brad Hollister for being in the top 500 at the PWI and everything. But I believe what number was he? Do you recall?
There was so many numbers yesterday because I was following. There was Fox Vineyard. There was Hollister. There was Anthony Green. There was so many, and there from our area. I want to say there was over a dozen in the top 500.
That's very good. And you know what? The names that you just mentioned are all hard workers, all excellent mat wrestlers, all guys that really, really respect the business and know what to do in the ring. Not guys who profess to be wrestlers but are /fans. But anyway, so but that was my take on the on some of the locals and everything.
Okay.
And I'm sure that there'll be other names that'll pop up in future interviews. We just mentioned Pro Wrestling Illustrated, which is, I understand because I no longer buy the magazine, that is the only newsstand magazine left.
Really?
That's what I was told. And wrestling magazines were the outlet for publicity for decades.
The staple, the go-to.
The go-to. Now, I just happen to have one of my first Otis Wrestling magazines, the Wrestling News from January 1932. This was a monthly magazine which came out, and it covered wrestling here basically in the Northeast and as well as nationwide. It was out of Boston. But I just find that wrestling magazines over the years, and I had been involved in wrestling magazines since the age of 16 with Ring Wrestling Magazine, back in the day when LBJ was president. But the thing is that you have the internet now, which has replaced the pulp magazines. Everyone's their own publicist and everything. I remember doing an article on Frenchie Martin, who was with Dino Bravo back in the day. And this was before he was with Dino Bravo. I did an article on him. He was so excited, he gave me $20. So, I mean, but, it's just a different ball game. It's a different ball game today. But the magazines were very, very important. I have a vast collection of magazines dating from the 1930s to probably the 90s, the WWF magazine and some of the others. And then I kind of ceased and everything. But they were an important factor for fans getting to know what was going on nationwide, because we didn't have the internet, or you couldn't make phone calls and everything. If you did make phone calls, it was expensive back in the day and everything. But overall, I think that with the way wrestlers conduct themselves through the internet and publicize themselves is an A+, because if you don't publicize yourself, nobody knows who the hell you are, period.
Are you familiar with Mark Adam Haggerty?
Haggerty is a whiz on self-publicity. And I think everybody should take a chapter of his book as to how to publicize yourself.
Well, I bring him up because of the topic you're speaking of, because just recently, like this past Thursday, because I do Center Ring with Fogman on Thursdays, this past Thursday at Tessa Strength at their dojo was the Mark Adam Haggerty Power Hour.
Oh, okay.
And it was his very first marketing seminar. And the turnout was beautiful. And I'm gonna go through some info, and I'm gonna show you the picture. And the turnout was amazing. And I think what's gonna happen is Mr. Haggerty might be doing more of these seminars.
I think that'd be an excellent, and anybody should, the guys who have not attended any of the seminars by Mark Haggerty should make an effort to do so, because he's definitely a talent, and he can share his perspective. And he's I want to say he's kind of like a latecomer to wrestling and everything. He brings in a different background and everything, which is good. And I applaud him 100%. Go, Mark, go.
Look at that picture
at the
dojo.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful.
That's beautiful turnout, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's amazing. So, like I said, I think there might be more of these seminars with Mark Haggerty.
He had to do one at the Combine.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I mean, he sends out a lot of love, and he has. I call him the Gene Simmons of wrestling, of indie wrestling.
I like that. Yeah, it's very good.
Because he has Mark Haggerty bookmarks. So he's got a Mark bookmark. He's got lighters. He has calendars. He has T-shirts, and you name it. I think he's got pens, and he does all of these little things that keeps his name on people's desks or in their hands or in their car, in their books.
Better than that, on your desk, it goes up here. It's in the back of your mind. Subconsciously, when somebody says wrestling, and maybe you're a casual wrestling fan and everything, this manager, Mark Haggerty, he's unbelievable. And I saw him at Battlefront a couple months ago, and I got a chance to talk to him and everything, and he is a great talent.
Now, he's a based ring announcer. That's his gig.
Yeah.
But seeing him work as a manager at Battlefront, you would never thought he was a ring announcer. You would think he was already a manager by the way he presented himself.
And he was old school manager, too. I liked it.
Right? And that's going to bring me kind of to Mr. Atticus Monroe, because as you mentioned, I will be seeing Mr. Monroe right after this. And I'll be meeting him at Kevin Landry's Combine, which is always an amazing place to go to, because it's just, the ambiance is very cool over there.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So that'll be such a great interview, but that keeps me on the topic of the managerial thing, because when Mr. Atticus Monroe comes out, his mark is made from the second he comes out of the curtain.
As I had mentioned to you last segment, I believe Mr. Monroe is a blossoming talent that just has to be noticed from outside of New England and taken in and blossom more than he is. He's an awesome talent. I wish him the best. And he just returned from a WWE seminar, and I hope that you will discuss that with him in great detail.
I am hoping, because it must have been an amazing experience, because from beginning, before leaving home, to going there, to coming and returning, and then even after returning, some of the corresponding that he's been doing with the people that he met down there.
Exactly.
It's still going.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the experience was amazing.
Well, yeah, and it's not only with Mr. Monroe, but anybody in those experiences that goes down to these seminars or whatever, these wrestling conferences they have, or fan fests. You meet people that have a common interest in everything. And, even though you may have that link in your local community, there might be a different perspective or a different idea coming from outside your region. So, I applaud him, and I applaud anybody that gets involved in that and everything. It can only enhance his chances to progress in wrestling, as well as other people that went to that seminar.
Right.
And it's something that you should, if you have the opportunity, you should do it. Absolutely. I don't know what the details were, how he was invited down or whatever, but I applaud him for even going.
I think it was a reaching out thing.
I think so.
From him to them, I would like to be part of this, because when they announce these tryouts or these fantasy camps, people flock from all over the place.
Well, I'm sure he had to send some sort of video or something, and everything. Just don't take any ham bone and bring them in.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, anyways, continue on, sir.
I want to get back to a couple things. Mr. Ray Jazz, you mentioned.
Right.
Have you ever seen? Do you follow him on the social media?
I occasionally I do. He's a friend on Facebook.
There's some training videos that totally astonish me.
I just saw one this morning. This morning, maybe last night, where he's got this big tire and he's got a sledgehammer, and I said, that's great. I love it. I love it. Ray, God bless you, kid. Yeah. You're going to do well. Yeah, you really are.
And I agree with you. Has a good look.
Yeah.
Very athletic.
Yeah.
Teamed up with Marcos last time.
Yeah.
They looked fantastic against the Tough Guy Inc.
Yeah.
I have to agree with you. PWI 500.
Uh-huh.
There are many that love it, many that don't love it. They think it's a crock. They think it's unnecessary and it shouldn't even exist anymore. What is your take specifically? Because you bring up, and I have to just this is 15 cents, Wrestling News 1932. I mean, this is just amazing. PWI is the last one running, from what you were saying.
Right, as far as I know, yeah.
Do you feel that it holds a standard for wrestling being on the PW 500? Because some of our local guys are very excited to be on it.
Well, I'm anyone that's going to be in that list of 500, should be very proud of themselves. I glanced at the list, and I guess the first 200 are people of national prominence already.
Right.
And the rest of the crew are guys that are regional and everything. It adds a feather to their cap if they're in that. So is it a negative or a positive? It's definitely a positive. Anytime you can get your name in print, in wrestling, a wrestling publication, on the net or something, it's a positive thing. Even if you could take it negatively as a negative, not necessarily the ratings or anything, but say somebody posts something that is not complimentary, it gives you feedback to improve or challenge the guy that's giving you the headaches. But what it is that any publicity is good publicity, and that's how I look at it. And if you had used the word branding, to me, branding is hey, Tex, we're going to brand the cattle today. To me, it's publicity. Yeah. Go ahead, Dan. Done.
Were you part of the magazine? Like you grabbed all of the literature that you could, obviously, because you have a lot of stuff. But this is a collection over the years. But during when you were a wrestling fan, were you one of those guys that went to the stores, picked up the publications, had to follow what was going?
Let's get back to the 60s.
Okay.
In 1964, 65, there were like 3 wrestling publications: Wrestling Review, Wrestling World, and Ring Wrestling were the 3 national wrestling magazines. Then there was also a Big Time Wrestling from which also published in 64. I don't think they published in 65, but that was another national magazine. But yes, I would go to the newsstand, pick it up, and everything. And for Wrestling Review, which was at that point monthly, I had a subscription to. The others were like quarterly and everything. So, it was a hit or miss, And I was able to scan by scan, I'm not saying, scan the newsstands, see the magazines and pick them up and blah, blah, blah and everything. But, that was my key. And then, of course, back in the day, we had what we called fan club columns. And this would have been a situation where various people in different parts of the United States would have a fan club for an honorary wrestler or a general wrestling fan club. And they would have wrestling news and the honorary or general wrestling news. And this is how we all kept in contact with the pen pal section and everything. I made friends back in the day, in the 60s, that I'm still in correspondence with today in the 2019. It's amazing. I've had a glorious friendship with a lot of these people. I've met them, and we've exchanged news back then, and we still exchange news. Well, maybe more not exchange news now. More is mostly commentary than news and everything. And then back in the day, the local promotions would take out newspaper ads and have wrestling promos in the newspapers, and we'd exchange those. I would send those like my friend Jeff Walton in Los Angeles, and he would send me his stuff from L.A. So it was just a marvelous time and everything, and something that I greatly miss. I don't even believe the local promoters today use a newspaper for any publicity. I may be wrong in that, but I don't. I know WWE, when they come to Springfield, they usually have there's usually an article in the entertainment section rather than the sports section, which I have issues with. But anyways, overall, the internet has taken that over, has filled that void, replaced it with their promo posters, etc., that they have, their promos that the guys do, videos, etc., which, is beneficial because that's probably the crowd that they're attracting. Because when was the last time you went on about a newspaper?
It's been quite some time, my friend.
See, there you go. And even I have given up buying the local newspaper and the various other newspapers I get. So, but it's just a course of time. It evolves.
I can just turn on my phone and I go to my local paper and at least get the gist of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I check the obituaries every morning. make sure I'm still
to
there.
See if you're still here.
Yeah. I got my obituary already written. I've done a rewrite like 7 times.
No, really?
Yeah, absolutely. And my eulogy's written too, because nobody's going to say anything that I don't want to hear.
Oh dear. You threw me off. I had something. Oh my word! You threw me off with that whole obituary thing. Okay, I forgot. I'll remember.
That's okay. That's
I'll remember, and I'm gonna go to. There was this reunion of the Cauliflower Club,
Yes.
1994,
Right.
and I did not watch the entire thing. It is 1 hour and 30 minutes.
Right.
I have watched most of it so far because I've watched it in probably in like about 37 minutes, but then I skimmed to see what else was going on, and I saw at the end this room.
Right.
I have a few questions, so I'm gonna. We had to take a quick little break there.
Yeah, yes. I feel a lot better. Thank you.
That's okay. We need Mr. Burke to feel good. Okay, now we are talking the reunion of the Cauliflower Club. There is a lot of footage of the reunion in like a hall type place with a lot of memorabilia and stuff around. But then it cuts to your room. And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on there? So I have a few questions. First off, Roy Lucha Wrestling is where this is based on YouTube. Is this a friend of yours? Do you know this person? Is that who was taking the footage? Ray Lucha Wrestling.
Roy.
Roy Lucha. Roy, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Roy
that's why you said Ray. Yeah,
I need glasses.
Roy's a Cauliflower Alley guy who I've met a number of years. He had no association with that video other than posting it.
Okay.
He searched it and found it. I didn't even know it was out there.
Oh.
The gentleman that did the video was Tony Martin, I believe that's his last name. He's from Virginia. And George Mayfield, who was a local guy here in Springfield, who eventually ran tours to Japan with fans. But anyways, after the CAC ended, I was working to be at work at 2:00 in the afternoon. So the event ended like 11:30. So myself, George, and Tony came over my house with Paul Moret, and we did a video of the collection here. And then they took off, and I ended up going back to work. But how the CAC came to Springfield was I was on the board of directors at the Cauliflower Alley Club at the time, and there was talk.
Could you explain what the Cauliflower Alley Club is?
Oh yeah,
we've talked about it,
yeah.
And I hate to interrupt. I really do.
No problem.
But
Yeah.
I'd like to understand exactly what it is.
The Cauliflower Alley Club was a club which was formed by a couple ex-boxers and wrestlers with Mike Mazurki, the famous wrestler and also a movie actor, who started the club as an association for people within the framework of wrestling, boxing, and show business. In order to be a member of that club at that time, you had to have a sponsor. You just could not send your dues in and expect to be a member of the club. The club has changed drastically, basically because of the passing of so many old timers and everything. And now the club takes in fans, people that are still involved in wrestling, etc. But it's been expanded. The mention earlier of being a sponsor, I was sponsored back in, I got to stop and think, probably 1980, I guess it was, or 81, by Lou Thez to become a member of the CAC.
That's so cool.
And, it was just one of those things. I had met Lou in 1975. We struck up a friendship and a correspondence and everything, and one thing led to another, and he sponsored me as a member, and then he became president of the Cauliflower after Mike Mazurki had passed. And I jokingly said to him one time, I said, Lou, how does one get on the board? And he says to me, yeah, when the next person that dies, you'll be on. 6-8 months later, he calls you, you still want that board position? I said, yeah. He said, well, somebody just mentioned someone that passed away. So I got on the board of directors.
Wow.
So I got on the board of directors, and I was going to the meetings and everything. It was once a year in California. I would take vacation time and go out. It was a phenomenal time. And then there was talk about expanding the CAC outside of California. And that's what we did. We ran the first East Coast reunion was here in Springfield. Then we had 2 in New Jersey, in Newark, and it was also one in Tampa. I did the 2 Newark ones. I never did the Tampa one because I had no vacation time left, sad to say. I wish I did, though. But the Springfield one was an interesting assortment of people attending, because I was doing the wrestling segment. Charlie Ross from Boston was doing the boxing segment. Charlie Ross was an old boxing trainer and also an ex-boxer. So he was bringing Willie Pep, Carmen Basilio, Tom McNeely, and some other boxing people. And I did the wrestling thing and everything. But it was probably one of the last times that we had world champions of both classes, boxing and wrestling, at an event. Wrestling-wise, we had Luthez, Pedro Morales. We had Carl Von Hess, who had a claimant of the Vern Gagne. Jackie Nichols, who was the junior heavyweight wrestling champion of the NWA back in the 40s. And Vern Gagne said to me, the only reason he came to Springfield was to see Jackie Nichols, who helped train him as a pro. Wow. So I mean, it was just amazing stuff. And it was just amazing stuff. And Fabulous Moolah, too, was there.
I was going to say, to add a couple more names, the Fabulous Moolah was there. Yeah. I seen Gorilla Monsoon was there.
Yeah.
And I have to pick out one specific name. A very young Rick Rude.
Yes.
Was all over that video.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. And it was it was one of the highlights of my wrestling career, having that, to be honest with you, in my home city and everything. And matter of fact, who were there? The Battlefront Boys were there.
Oh, the Gores, really?
The Gores were there, absolutely.
Now, being in Springfield and you being on the board, was it going, when you wanted to expand and like you said, you took it from the West Coast and brought it to the East Coast, was that any of your influence?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When, I cannot I'm having a senior moment here. The vice president of CAC came to Springfield to visit. We met with the hotel people. He also visited a couple other cities on the East Coast, but he chose Springfield as the site. It was easy to get to. We had Bradley International Airport right down the road here and everything. We had Amtrak, we had the buses, etc. and everything. And God forbid me, I cannot think of that guy's name. God almighty. Oh, I'm going to shoot myself. Now, obituary might be read earlier. What's his name?
Forgot blankety blank's name.
I can't think of his name. And all my CAC files downstairs, so I can't dig into that. But anyways, he was there, and he's the one that gave the nod to have it in Springfield, and we had a phenomenal time.
Seeing Pedro Morales on a video like that, because I didn't know what to expect in the video, and I'm like, holy crap, that's Pedro Morales.
And what was nice was the atmosphere of the Hotel de Sheraton. We were the only event that weekend, and everybody got to mix. There was no loud music, no huther-buther going on and everything, and people were able to sit down and talk to these guys. Everybody was congenial. And it was the first time that I had ever got a chance to really speak to Gorilla Monsoon. I had met him a couple times prior, but not in such a casual way. It was just phenomenal. And he said that he was totally impressed with CAC, and sad to say he fell ill about a year or so after that, and passed.
So you got to see him.
Yeah. So But and the same with Jackie Nichols too. I had never met Jackie Nichols at all. I knew the name, I knew his career, so that was some. But that was one of the highlights of my wrestling career, if you want to call it that.
Where is the Cauliflower Alley Club nowadays? What's
It
going
is.
on
It
with
is now run by Brian Blair.
Brian Blair?
Yeah, he's the president, and we have an annual convention reunion in Las Vegas. It'll be in April of 2020.
Is that the only place?
That's at this point. Yeah. And a matter of fact, the administration has changed. Scott Teal from Crowbar Press is now the executive vice president of CAC, and he has done a heck of a job. He's changed a lot of things already, all for the betterment of the club and wrestling in general. And the people who participate in the reunion are very, very fortunate to have Scott and Brian as the head of the club.
It's quite an interesting club. The CAC.
It is Cauliflower Alley Club, which stands for Cauliflower Ear.
I want to take this to. There's a lot of injuries that happen in wrestling, and we have two of our very own local guys. One, Brad Hollister, and one, Hammer Tunis.
Right.
They have both been fallen of like. We were talking about injury with Brad Hollister and Hammer Tunis. They've been a tag team forever. Then they kind of split and went their singles ways.
Right.
And they've both fell on injury kind of almost in the same token.
All about the same time period. Yeah.
They've both gone in for surgery. They have both been successful surgeries.
Absolutely. Both for Tunis and for Hollister. They're successful. They had a successful surgery. Now it's a time for rest, recuperation, and recovery. And I'm hoping to see both of them continue on and everything. Wrestling within that squared circle, it's still a dangerous sport, and injuries are there. So I just wish the guys well, and that they will progress and be able to get back into their niche and what they like to do.
Well, they actually have two separate stories after injury, because Brad Hollister has started a podcast, What's Sizzling,
right?
If I'm not mistaken,
right.
And he's kind of taking up his time in doing that. Hammer Tunis has mentioned that his injury was a little bit worse than they expected.
Exactly, yeah.
And he's on the question mark or the border if he's actually going to come back.
Because on Tunis. There's an age factor, too. He's going to be, I think he said, like 32, 33 when his recovery is finished and therapy and all that and everything. And whether he'll be able to continue wrestling, it might be in question. It's just like that guy, the football player recently that just quit. And I just could not believe how the fans reacted. They booed him. He had death threats and everything. Yeah. I don't think Tunis or Hollister are going to get death threats. but the thing is, in the long run, you have to consider yourself. Do you want to end up like the Dynamite Kid? Or other guys who are totally handicapped or something? It is for your own benefit and health that counts first. The glory may be gone, but you know what? You're still alive and well. That's what counts.
What do you think about the guys and girls that fight through injury during a match and finish off said match because that's what they feel is necessary? And I've seen it a bunch of times.
I've seen it as well. I think, in all seriousness, should a gal or a guy realize that they haven't that something is wrong, they should single the referee and go home, bring it home, not to in order to sustain further injury or something, because in the long run, that's not what's important. The main thing is your own health, your own body, to maintain that. Because if you're going to be crippled up or something, what good is it going to do?
I find it amazing. You're 75 years old and you still actively go.
I'm not 75. I'm 72, but I will be 75.
He's been messing with me the whole time.
No, I haven't. I just told you in 2 years.
Okay.
3 years I'll be.
All right, I got you.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, don't worry about that.
I told you I'm not that bright, Mr. Burke. You're still actively going to local shows, which is amazing, and I love seeing the
Well, the reason I do this is for me to, it's something for me to do. Wrestling has been my life in many ways. I have other major interests and everything, but wrestling has played a big part of my life, and I'm totally grateful for that. I've made some wonderful friendships, and I'll continue to go to shows. I have a scheduled show coming up for Battlefront in October, and Tessa Strength is next weekend, next Saturday
at the
Deuce in Northampton, which is the venue which I inaugurated wrestling in with Dick Blake when he ran New Age or it was Old Time or
New Age, Old Time.
Something. Yeah. He's had a variety of names, but I was up in Northampton, and I always used to see the Deuce, and I said, gee, that'd be a great place to run wrestling. And we went up there, and boom, and he's run there, Tunis has run there, and now Tessa Strength is there.
So you brought wrestling to the Deuce?
Well, I'm the one that suggested that venue.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love the venue.
Venue is one of the best. Yeah.
And this one coming up for Tessa Strength is their WrestleMania of the year, because it is Fight for Your Dreams.
Exactly.
too.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm hoping to attend that if things go right.
That should be a very special one, because when it comes to those WrestleManias, because like PAPW has Dieselmania 4 coming up on September 13th. The smaller independent companies that have these big once-a-year extravaganzas, which we like to call their WrestleManias,
right?
They really like to put on some shows.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm not expecting this to be anything less, because Tessa Strength is really always a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's the home of El Jabroni, baby. Oh, hell, El Jabroni.
Exactly.
Can I ask you a question, since I just mentioned? What do you think? What do you think of a guy like Mr. One El Jabroni? He's got a mask on. He's very entertaining. He may not be, the greatest mat wrestler as a Curry or so, but I mean, do you like the value of an entertainment guy like El Jabroni in the ring? Does that...
There's been many El Jabronis in the ring, in wrestling, throughout its history. Mm-hmm. You had guys who were not that pristine at mat wrestling. However, their gimmick was so over that it didn't matter to the promoters or to their opponents, because people flocked in to see the El Jabroni of the day or the El Jabroni of today. Mm-hmm. So, ability does count. There's no doubt about it. Ring savvy counts, but also characterization. Mm-hmm. If you do not have a character in as a wrestler today, you're like a wet dish rag, basically. So getting back to what do I think of El Jabroni? Thank God he's got a mask, because he'd scare everybody away if he didn't have that mask.
He's we've gained some odd relationship very quickly, and it all became over spilt soda, to be honest with you. Okay. Literally was over spilt soda.
Now, are you going to be seeing El Jabroni in the near future?
Well, he is going to be at the Deuce.
Okay.
And we do correspond now and then. It's almost like a Peter Parker Spider-Man kind of relationship,
I got it.
We do speak on the social media. So he kind of, I keep tabs on him. I keep more tabs on him than he keeps on me because I've actually stalked him one time at a hospital. That was interesting. That was very interesting.
Yes, I can imagine.
It was after a concussion. I was just checking up on him
Yeah.
and stuff. You know?
When you contact him again, or you have any association with him?
Yes, sir.
Person to person, give him my fondest personal
Oh, I
regards.
will. He would love to. He loves you, Mr. Burke. You don't even know. He spoke so highly of Mr. Burke. He loves you.
He should.
He loves you.
I got to put myself over in this too, you know. But okay, so yeah, but that's the story. He may not be the greatest wrestler in the world, but he has a gimmick. People like it, and El Jabroni is, I love the name, to be honest with you.
Do you find something that nowadays is different, obviously. We spoke of, storylines and telling a story, and guys that like to jump around and do the flips and stuff. And I know you're more of an older school mat wrestler. Is there anything that really turns you off specifically about wrestling? What?
Well, the thing that that gets me, and I had mentioned this in segment number 1, is the lack of traditional wrestling holds, or some mat wrestling and everything. Even different holds, like the abdominal stretch, you never see that. The sleeper hold, you never see. Mm-hmm. I'll give you a prime example of a maneuver. Now, I'm not going to call it a hold because it wasn't. A maneuver which, thank God, nobody's tried it because they'd probably kill the guy. And that was Killer Kowalski would be on the top rope and do a knee drop and land right on the guy's neck. Now, his precision, when to pull, not to have contact, was right on. Today, it's sad to say, I think there'd be body bags coming out of the ring, to be honest with you. And that's probably because of the timing, mm-hmm. the perfection, and also knowing when and not, and everything. But that's. I remember one match on TV with Kowalski, and he was wrestling Pepper Gomez, the man with the iron stomach. Kowalski's on the top rope, ready to land on Gomez's neck. He launches himself off, and instead of hitting the neck, he hits his stomach. And of course, this gives him great pain, which adds on to a major rematch, or blah 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 and all that. The storyline was built up, and again, here we go with storylines.
And it's off of one knee to a stomach.
Yeah. And it's phenomenal stuff, So don't do any knee drops, guys. Okay.
I'm going to revert back to the magazines again because PWI has listed Seth Rollins #1 wrestler right now in the country, in the world, in the universe, in the milk, and forever. Right now, Seth Rollins is #1. Do you follow the WWE product like that?
Occasionally.
I'm sure you're familiar with Seth Rollins. I'm familiar
with the name. I've seen him on TV.
Okay.
And everything. Very good talent. And I leave it to the experts of today to make their choice. Because I don't want to defer from their judgment because it would not be right for me to do so.
There's a storyline that has was intacted, and then they made it fade away real quick. And there's the women's champion, Becky Lynch, and Seth Rollins are actually in real life now engaged, okay?
Uh-huh.
So they've had a romantic relationship, which most times does not get on screen in WWE, like the real ones.
Right.
The made-up ones is whatever, but their real kind of thing, and they would do promos together, and people weren't feeling it, They just... The mix of the real romantic flavor and doing promos and stuff on screen, for me, it just wasn't working. And for a lot of other people, it wasn't working. I feel that whole, like we were talking kayfabe and stuff, that whole romantic thing, with so much to do and so much creativity, and there's so many storylines that you could do, bringing the romantic one to TV is absolutely feels to me so unnecessary and useless. A lot of guys say, I could write for WWE and I could make them soar to different heights. Would you want to be like one of those guys that created storylines for a company? Would you like to be behind the scenes and be part of a company to actually like...
Probably not.
Wow, that was pretty quick.
Probably not. Because with the trend that it is today, no. Maybe back in the day. I mean, I've come up with different ideas and everything, and which has been utilized in some of the indie stuff and everything. Just to tell you a little story that we were going to do, which never took place because of circumstances beyond our. You're going to be interviewing Mr. Monroe in the very near future, and he was formerly known as Mr. DiNucci. When he was with PvP and I was with PvP, the idea was hashed about that my birthday was coming up, and we were going to have a little celebration, and Mr. DiNucci was going to come up and throw a cake at me.
In your face?
Yeah, and that eventually would have ended up with a match. But that never took place because we both parted the companies. Actually, Joey didn't. I did. But Joey continued to stay on for a little while.
So this would have led into a match between you and Mr. DiNucci?
It would have been a comic match.
Come on, really?
Yeah. That was one thing. And listen, there was something else, too. That's funny. Well, the Great Nuke.
Uh-huh.
The concept of his character, I thought of when I saw him at the Combine. Because he has a distinct look that could easily pass for a Korean and everything. And there's a young man that will be in training. I rephrase that. Will be back in training in January, who was going to have this gimmick, and I don't know if that's, I think I'm on the wayside now, but we were going to call him Trumpy.
Trumpy?
Trumpy.
After Donald Trump.
Trumpy. You can take it as is.
Oh, okay.
And he and the Nuke were going to have a feud together.
Okay.
And that was before Donald and whatever his name is, the guy from North Korea, our buddy now.
Okay.
But before that, they were arch enemies. So we were going to program that and everything. But, all this stuff is good and everything. You use your imagination. The Wizard told me one time, whatever's in the news, if you can take it and twist it around into a wrestling storyline, do so, because it's fresh in the minds of people.
That brings me back to full circle. Chris Cannon against Nuka at News.
Yeah.
Again, we spoke of, I thought was match of the night of the event.
Absolutely.
And they were going to try to continue that, but the news date was canceled.
Right.
And now you have the emergence of Honest Abe in fatigues with Chris Cannon, and he's talking about the chickabee screw job. He's still looking right at Nuka with a big bullseye. So I think this thing, the storyline, again, we come back to. They're trying to keep that thing really working.
Well, I think
it happen.
I think for Dudley Do-Right, a.k.a. Honest Abe, a.k.a. Daddy Warbucks, Beetle Bailey, Sad Sack, whatever name you want to use on this name, the Godfather of Wrestling. You're on. At least you got something right, kid.
Do you like going, because you mentioned Kevin Landry's, you mentioned of upcomers, do you like going to schools and seeing these guys?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You go off?
Well, it's funny. Even though I've been to the schools a number of times, and everything, and most people know me, but there's been a lapse of time that I was not very active due to work circumstances, as well as my involvement in CAC and other things, that my contact on the local wrestling front was totally obliterated. I was not doing anything and everything. And it was just by chance that I got back in the scene like in 91, I think it was, just through a coworker at work whose brother was involved in the local wrestling scene. Trash. I don't know if you know Trash. That's God. Yeah. God, I worked with his brother. I worked with John. God. Folks, when you get to a point in age, you can't remember names. It's bad. Anyway, John Connor. No, not John Connors. John O'Connell. Johnny O'Connell. Jimmy O'Connell was Trash. But he was involved in the local wrestling scene with the EWA, with Doc Heresy. I went to the show, and it was fun. It was fun and Doc Heresy, who I understand was an outstanding and took the show over this past Saturday at Western Mass in East Hampton. Doc hasn't wrestled in a number of years. I heard he had the crowd going. Doc's a great talent, a good friend, and just an awesome talent. But overall, getting back to you, I lost your question. What was your question now?
Going to the schools.
Going to schools.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. So I do go to the school. I don't go as frequently as I used to, but I will go again in another few days, whatever. All depending upon scheduling and everything.
There's been a recent retirement, probably early retirement of one of our local guys, R.J. Boom.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Now, he's had a lot of medical issues going on, mental issues going on over the course of his career, ups and downs, and highs and lows.
The Boomer, I've known him probably about 10 years, I guess, something like maybe a little longer. He definitely has a passion for the business, but sad to say, he's had so many hurdles to cross, and I just wish him well.
I do too.
As anybody, I mean, life, life is a tightrope. You can walk that straight and narrow path, but any time you can go this way or you can go that way and fall off that tightrope, mentally and physically, and that's something which people just take for granted and everything. I had a very, very good friend of mine, non-wrestling, who committed suicide, and we were all in shock. But later we learned of his issues. He just could not deal with them, and sad to say, it was a tragic situation. And but when you have those thoughts, and if you seek help, people. Really, please do,
I interviewed Ataxia, and Ataxia is the biker gang, if you will, out of New York area that has come down to Battlefront.
Yeah.
And I interviewed a couple of them, Smoke and Coffin, previous to the last event. And they ended their interview with that specific message of just talk to somebody, reach out, there's a lot going on, even though everybody's got something going on. Just reach out,
Sometimes just an ear to listen to is very, very important. I had a situation back 50 odd years ago where an individual that I knew when I was in the Army with had committed suicide, and that's another story in itself and everything, which I will I may get into at a later time. But ever since that time period, when this young man who was 22 years old took his life, as sad as it was, it also opened up my mind and reflection on life in general, and my thinking went from negative to positive in some respects.
I see some of the stuff you have, and most of it like 99.999% of it is very old era. And then I see over in the corner, you've got a Slim Jim box, and you've got a WWF Superstars box of cereal with Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior on it over there.
And what about right next to you?
But wow, I see so much. I did not look to my left. You are correct. I see that picture over there. Those two on the box, they're smiling and all of that. And you think of the relationship that Vince has had with some of these guys over the course of many years. The Ultimate Warrior and Vince McMahon did not have the best relationships for a very long time. They both talked junk about each other over the course. And then all of a sudden, the Ultimate Warrior comes back after so many years. He's on WWE TV. And then the next day, he's gone.
Yeah.
It was such a crazy thing. Like, I mean, not for me especially only, but for wrestling fans, for the wrestling world. And I think it's just this weird full circle, the thing that kind of happened with specifically the Ultimate Warrior. I don't know if it was like depression, whatever you have going on, like we've said. I guess basically the moral of the story really is to just seek help or talk to somebody or do something. Just don't stay alone and stay to your own thoughts.
Exactly. That's very important. And, like you said, with the Ultimate Warrior and everything, he definitely had a niche for his time period. People were engrossed in him. They followed him. They loved him and everything. A personal note, I never met the man. Even I did meet his partner, Sting, later. But the Warrior and Sting were trained by my very good friend, Billy Anderson, who was and still is a very, very dear friend of mine. And Billy and I've known Billy since 1974, I believe it was, when I met him at a wrestling convention in Detroit, Michigan. He was there visiting his dad, his mother, and he lived in Arizona. But we became instant friends. When I said to him, "Where you're living?" he said, "Arizona." I said, "Yeah, I need a correspondent in Arizona." And boom. And Billy and I have been very, very good friends. But he trained so many people and everything. Getting back to the Warrior and Hogan as well. They definitely turned heads in wrestling. They were on top for years. And everything. What you referred to, the breakup between Vince and the Warrior, I don't recall that because I wasn't following it and everything. It was just a different thing. It didn't seem to make an impact on me and everything. But I definitely know that the Warrior, as equal to Hogan, was a major draw and a major attraction, and it's sad to say he passed away tragically, as I recall. And tell me if I'm wrong on this. Were he and his wife out shopping and he collapsed?
There was something, yes, very similar. If I'm not mistaken, yes, that is correct. Yes.
Yeah. So you just don't know. You just don't know when your time's up. It's up.
I see that tapestry there you have of one Ox Baker, the legend.
Oh, Ox is the best. I loved Ox.
He made quite an impact in our area.
He sure did. Well, he was, Ox Baker was from Iowa. He was one of the persons that we talked about earlier who was not a wrestler. He was, as he said, a razzler. His ring ability was very limited. However, he had a gimmick, and he had a look, and he was the first to admit it, which I love that, because he knew exactly where he stood in wrestling. And Ox Baker, he came from Iowa. His family, I believe he was the only child. His family had a large farm. And when they passed away, inherited the farm, he ended up selling the land to a developer and made a big chunk of money. And Ox went on, and I remember this. I just remember this. I'm in St. Louis at a TV taping, and he's wrestling some guy. I forget who it was, and his dentures fell out.
Ox?
Yeah. Just dawned on me. It's funny as hell. And he's scurrying on the mat, getting his dentures, putting his dentures in.
Oh my word!
But no, Ox was a great guy. I loved Ox, and he was a good friend. We used to talk on the phone a lot, and God, when we used to get together, we had a game. I would give him a name, and he would tell stories about the guys.
Oh, really?
Oh, that was just phenomenal. Give me another name. Give me another name. Oh, that was fun. That was fun.
It reminds me of a recent podcast. It was Jericho's podcast, and he had Ric Flair on telling numerous Harley race stories. Numerous stories. Yeah. So that was a pretty fun listen. I've talked to you about a lot of different subjects. I don't like to dive into people's personal life, but I've never heard you speak of a love interest or a dame on your side through the years of your wrestling.
Well, I'm happy you brought that up because I knew you were going to bring this up eventually because everybody does.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
My life has been a roller coaster in that area.
Okay.
And there's just one word to describe it: selfishness.
Okay.
I like to do what I like to do when I like to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to be hunkered down. And even though at one point in my life, back in my late 20s, there was a possibility of something taking place, but it got to a point where there was, I felt a controlling aspect in this relationship with this young lady, and I said, this is not going to ride. And that's the end of that. I have a number of friends, lady friends. I have a very, very dear friend of mine, my friend Patricia, who is a widow, who married one of my best friends in high school. And her grandson said to me, "Are you going to marry my grandmother?" And she said no already. But seriously though, no, that's my status. I contemplated other aspects, unbeknownst to a lot of people. I contemplated a religious life at one time as a Franciscan brother. That didn't. That kind of ended. But anyways, that's what it is. That's my take on my personal side of my life.
I can't imagine it would be easy to try to do all of this and keep a relationship at the same time because of the traveling and everything that goes on with wrestling.
Oh yeah.
So I was just very curious.
And then back in the day too, there were places to go.
Yeah.
I had contacts that I met through the years, which helped assist me over the years and everything. But it's what it is. Everybody has their own take in life. You can have happiness or misery. I took happiness.
I noticed, because this room is just so astonishing, but I noticed there's another room that has a collection in it, and you call it the beer room.
Absolutely. Which I'm happy you mentioned to me.
There are so many arrays of different kinds, and the collection is a collection.
Two things on wrestling and beer.
Please.
One of my favorite items in my beer collection, per se, and restaurant collection, is the Baron von Raschke beer mat.
Oh, look at that. He's got a Von Raschke coaster right there.
And I have another item that I want to show everybody, but in order for me to get it, I have to take the mic off for a minute.
Please.
And keep the mic on.
All right.
I just have to walk to the refrigerator.
We'll put that there.
And pick it up.
All right.
And this is my latest,
Oh, we have a recent.
the most recent item to my collection.
Yeah, baby.
Von Raschke coaster. Look at that. Is this a premium local legend? Cast your vote. That's all. What do we got here?
I put the mic back on.
What in the world does that do? What?
This is my latest collectible, the Giant Baba beer from Japan. The Giant Baba, as many of you know, was an NWA champion for a short time period. But my very dear friend John Pantozzi out of New York, who has an awesome collection. I would wish I had it. Thank you, John. John's youngest son went to Japan for the second or third time, and he brought back 2 bottles of beer of Giant Baba, one for his dad, and the other one came to me. So thank you, Johnny, and thank you, John.
Well, you can't read a damn thing on this label, that's for sure. I was curious on the alcohol content.
I don't know, but I'm gonna try it out a little later on.
Does that say like 16X chop?
Yeah,
beer?
whatever.
I saw.
Yeah. But getting back to my beer, I do enjoy my brewskis.
Have you had quite many encounters with beer and wrestling together, meeting the men and women through your life, throughout your collecting and whatnot? Has that brought it together a little bit?
Absolutely. A beverage which I haven't had in years, Ballantine Ale. When I used to go to Burlington, Vermont for the matches, that was under the Grand Prix auspice, and Ira Blow and Gilles the Fish Poisson were the promoters, who became Louis Cyr in the Tri-WF. After the matches, we would go to Ira's house, the promoter and his wife, and we would drink Ballantine Ale. And they had, it was just, that Ballontine's got a little kick. It's nice. I like a brewski with a little kick. Well, anyways, and then in the same note, when Gilles Poisson came into the WWF as Louis Cyr, after an MSG card, we went to a local bar that was frequented by the wrestlers, which was called the Savoy, which would have been on West 46th Street or 47th Street, right by the Edison Hotel, where the guys used to stay. We are at the bar, and Andre the Giant comes in, sits down at the other end of the bar, and Gilles and I are talking with somebody, and all of a sudden, 2 beers show up in front of us. And Gilles says to the bartender, "What's this? Who's this from?" And the bartender, my name was Frenchy, by the way, points to Andre. And so we toasted Andre. Next thing we knew, they were done. There were 2 more beers there. So yes, yeah. So there was an opportunity to have some brewskis. But then there's a number of wrestlers didn't touch alcohol at all. Killer Kowalski was one. Karl von Hess was another. Didn't touch alcohol at all.
Did you ever have any kind of relationship with Andre?
No. Other than meeting him at Grand Prix before he became Andre the Giant, Jean Ferrer. That was it. And meeting him at a WWF show or whatever, but then not a close association.
So you've stood next to him and stuff like that?
Yeah, I did, yeah. And not being the tallest guy in the world, I got a stiff neck.
I can't even imagine. Holy cow.
Yeah, but that was a little side note about beer and wrestling.
Yeah, I was very interested, to be honest with you, because I am not a drinker, to be honest with you. So I just collections. I've never been a big collector, so collections like this and so forth, and the beer room, they do kind of fascinate me, but not to the point to where I have to start collecting. It's kind of weird. I don't know why.
No, I can. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. I mean, this item here, the beer bottle, the giant Baba beer bottle, it has been only the second item that I've
So 2019, you've only gotten 2 collectibles in your mix, if you will?
Yeah, in my mix.
That's it?
That's it. Because I'm getting at the age now where, what am I going to do with all this stuff?
True.
And, you come to a point in your life where you have to go like this, time out, And, but the Brimfield Flea Market's this next week. And I'm going up there. You'll never know what I get. I went up there a couple of years ago. I ended up getting some wrestling photos and wrestling posters. And, you never know what you're going to find. And I'm very specific what I'm interested in, too. Basically, the odor stuff, But, you never know what you can find.
I have a fun-filled day today, not only with Mr. Burke, I have Mr. Joseph DiNucci, I have Mr. Danny Pagan. I'm trying to squeeze all of that in one day. And I would actually like to continue more of
we have to, Donald. We have not done what we were supposed to do today.
Well, there was the talks of a vault.
We were going to look at the vault and in the sense of what the memorabilia is. And I was going to give you a discussion on various items. However, we never got around to that.
No,
so you know what that means?
Because there's so much talk.
Part 3.
Yeah, I am. Like
Part 3, Part 4, whatever.
12,
yeah,
15, 16.
Yeah. I got the time.
As long as you are not sick of my face coming to your...
I am not sick of your face. I certainly enjoy your interviews. I like how you handle it. I like how you interact with questions that I wouldn't bring up myself, which is good. And everything, but I sincerely look forward to segment number 3, which we will program down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know when, but we'll before the end of the month, definitely.
I would love it. You're always such an enjoyable person to talk to.
Well, thank you.
Beyond informative. I mean, like I said, there's so many questions that I probably have that I will never ever ask because my brain, it doesn't work right.
Donald, let me explain something to you right now.
And if I write stuff down, then it's not fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote notes down because I forget. And, God, I'm going to drive that CAC guy's going to drive me nuts now. But just getting back to one thing, though, is that when we meet again, we'll focus on some of the collectibles, maybe.
I would love to,
and also discuss some of the other issues. Maybe probably do it after the Test of Strength show.
You'll be seeing a show or two by then.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I would love to get your perspective on that.
I would love to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then also, the fact is that. You have a landscape of interviews coming up with Monroe and Danny, as well as other people, I'm sure, and everything. And I'm looking forward to those and everything. But we will definitely meet again, I can't wait. And I just want to let you know I really appreciate your time and your talent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, I hate to end this, but I got so much to do today. So I'm going to end this with, this is Stirring the Pot with Don Kincaid and my very, very special guest, Mr. Tom Burke. I thank you.
You have a fantastic
I'm
day,
going to
sir.
try to, kiddo.
And we're going to kick some butt today, baby.